Meanwhile, Israel is pushing on with its offensive on Gaza City despite mounting international condemnation. Well, for the very latest, let's cross live now to Noga Tarnopolsky. She's our correspondent based in Jerusalem. Noga, Israeli media reporting that there are currently huge strikes on Gaza City. What more can you tell us about what is happening on the ground there?
It's much more than Israeli media, Sharon. This is even Israeli citizens in central Israel are feeling the bombings in Gaza. That's how strong it is. We understand also from Palestinian sources that there have been at least 37 Israeli strikes within 20 minutes. This has been described as a ring of fire around Gaza City. And just in the last few minutes, we've gotten the first reports from Palestinians inside Gaza that there are IDF, Israel Defense Forces, tanks in central Gaza City. So I can't for sure say that this is the beginning of the Israeli full-on assault on Gaza City, but this is a very, very major, the largest escalation since Israel initiated the plan to occupy and take over all of Gaza City.
And Noga, what do you make of the fact that this is coming just hours after we saw yet another very public display of unity between the US and Israel as the American Secretary of State was holding talks in Jerusalem?
I think there's a direct link. We had really all eyes today on the press conference between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to see if there was any daylight between them, anything at all. President Trump has said many times that he wants to see the war in Gaza over. He wants to see it over as soon as possible. And so there was thinking here in Israel that Secretary of State Rubio's visit might be intended to transmit that message in a more forceful manner to Netanyahu. But it was pretty clear from the press conference today that that was not the case, and that the United States had no plan to restrain Israel in any way, that it was allowing Prime Minister Netanyahu to move ahead in what we have to say is this extremely controversial move. The idea of Israel taking over, invading Gaza City, emptying it of its 1 million, population of 1 million people, this has not only been condemned roundly by the international community, it's not only being condemned in the Arab world, but inside Israel. We heard again today reports of a screaming cabinet session in which the chief of staff of the IDF reiterated his opposition to this maneuver, screamed at the Israeli cabinet members to sign on a deal, to move to a deal, asking, why is the Mossad director here? Why isn't he working on a deal? So this has been very violent on the streets of Israel, in the cabinet of Israel, and among the family members of the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. We've seen scenes that are very difficult to describe. Mothers going on television literally to beg the government to spare their children. Very, very extreme scenes that much of the Israeli public is closely identified with. A vast majority of the Israeli public does not want this escalation of war. So Netanyahu really is striking out on his own, but with the backing of the Trump administration.
Yeah, and he has also been posting on X just in the last few minutes, Noga, saying that again, that this Israeli attack on Hamas leaders in Doha, saying this was wholly independent of the US. This coming, of course, as Marco Rubio heads to Doha. What kind of reception do you expect him to receive there?
Well, let's first say, if we can take a literary bent, that it's possible the lady doth protest too much. The Israeli Prime Minister has now said 3 or 4 times that this is solely an Israeli operation. And we know that at least the first time he made this announcement minutes into the assault against Hamas leaders in Doha, that this was at the request of the United States. And we've had conflicting or somewhat conflicting messages tonight. Again, 7 Israeli officials are quoted in the U.S. Online magazine Axios as saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu let Trump know of this imminent assault 50 minutes ahead So it's not what we've heard before. What I take from all of this muddled messaging is that there is some tension or some anger even between the Oval Office, between Donald Trump personally and Netanyahu, some conflict regarding when the United States knew and what the world knows about it. If the Qataris believe, for example, as hinted by these Israeli officials speaking to Axios, if the Qataris believe that Donald Trump knew almost an hour ahead of time and didn't stop this assault, that could actually impact American and Qatari relations, which are crucial. The United States has its largest military base in the entire region there. So we're seeing a lot of kind of behind the scenes maneuvering, but obviously the two biggest subjects at the table are the escalation we're now seeing in Gaza City and what the Israeli government's intentions may be towards the West Bank, where Israel has threatened to simply declare sovereignty over Palestinian lands against international law.
Noga, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that. That's our correspondent, Noga Tarnopolsky, joining us live there from Jerusalem.